as you're talking, I was thinking about like there's an animal that I am absolutely terrified of, but it's from like a personal experience.
Mm.
And it's bats. When I was
Ooh.
a little girl, a bat got in my room somehow and it got
Oh my
stuck
goodness.
in my hair.
Oh.
I woke up to my biological mother's first husband, like swinging a baseball bat
A bat. A
room.
bat.
I don't remember, a wooden object at my head because there was a bat in my hair and he was trying to get it.
Oh my
So
goodness.
anytime we've been at friends' houses for like cookouts or like a bonfires where you're like sitting down at night and they start sweeping, like getting the bugs, like they're totally
Yeah.
harmless.
Mhm.
But I literally can't do it. Like I will have to put a hood up over my head.
Mhm.
I get so viscerally, like I get like protective. Like I go in straight fetal mode.
Mhm.
Not I can't stop myself from doing it even if because like I have looked into bats. They're so fascinating. They're so good for the
Mhm.
environment. Like if you really want to get bugs out of your yard, get a bat house. Like they're really, really good to have
They
around.
eat mosquitoes.
And they really
That's great.
don't mess with humans. Like they really don't. But
Mhm.
obviously that bat probably flew in my window thinking it was like a hollow or a cave, and it
Mhm.
wasn't. And he got confused. Like that was what happened. Like it wasn't like it was a malicious bat attack.
Right. But it's just
But
something that's off-putting. It's like,
so like when
yeah,
you
and
were
you have a direct trauma where
yeah,
you had a bat stuck
yeah.
in your hair.
So like
Like
I'm
that is
curious to
very
look into
reasonable.
the meaning of that because like I feel like that
Mhm.
is what came to my mind. Like I am kind of always kind of thought in the back of my mind, like there's probably some sort of past life attachment to spiders or something,
Mhm.
like, but I've never really delved into that kind of thing. So I don't really know for sure. I just kind of wrote it off like, yeah, it's probably some, past life trauma.
Mhm.
But bats came to my mind when you were talking about that. And I'm just like, I should look up what's the significance to bats.
Yo, like I bet that is significant. I would love to hear when you look more into that. Know what I'm thinking of too is like I feel like there's as far to connect all of this back to aliens, there are alien groups which are like spiders, and there are alien groups of like, well, we know it's very common in like pop culture. We even say like the like reptiles, like the reptilians, um, and the draconians, and they have these ties to this like kind of snake energy, and then there's groups that have like a spider thing going on, and I feel like sometimes at different times these groups have been at war with different like galactic groups, and so I think some of us carry this like deep fear of like the reptiles and the spiders. Like that's one possibility of like it could be tied to that, where like it doesn't really make sense in this life that you had an experience with something, but like you're still so drastically afraid, it could
Really?
possibly
I didn't know
mean
that.
that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just one more thing to look into when you
Yeah.
get the time. But yeah, so anyway, do we want to talk about the series? I feel like we just did a whole episode
Yeah, I mean,
talking about everything else in the
it
world.
we could just I don't know, talk a little more, I guess, about something and then make this an episode. I don't know. What we could talk a little about Sirian if you want, because we have mentioned them already to a
Hmm.
certain extent a couple times.
Yeah, we can do a brief
And
Syrian introduction.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a longer episode. I don't think anyone will mind. We've done a variety of times, and until someone speaks up and says otherwise, you're getting what you
We do
get.
what we want. We
We
do what we want till you tell us what you want. You know, you don't ask, you don't get. Oh gosh, what just happened?
nothing, everything's good. I just almost knocked everything off of my table. We're fine.
Just almost though. We didn't really do it for real.
I think I just really knocked over my straw, which made it very ridiculous. We're good.
Ah, good times.
So Sirian was one of the three that I mentioned, and we had already talked about Palladian and
Mhm.
um
Arcturians we talked
Arcturian, and
about
Sirian were all three of the
last
ones that I
time.
was saying had some similarities. So
Mhm.
when you mentioned this was the one you wanted to follow with, I thought that was really interesting that I had already kind of said that
Mhm.
in the podcast, like, oh well, look at that. That works out perfectly.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this would be a good one to keep going, keep that same energy, keep talking about those same groups. Like, let's go into Sirius. So, what I love about Sirius is, well, there's two main planets that there's called Sirius A and Sirius B, and Sirius B, I believe, is the one that's like a water planet, another water planet, and it's personally, I always associate Sirius. It has this very beautiful, ancient, deep, again, this like deep blue color I associate with it, and I associate them with like whales, like massive but so kind and so loving and so gentle and like, but just such a powerful, beautiful energy. And like, you know, many like ancient civilizations have these stories of like the whales coming down from the sky. And so that some people believe that like whales themselves were just like came down into the earth from the sky, so they could whales could have a galactic origin as well. And I don't know if this is like written anywhere, but I just always feel like this deep, beautiful, like just whale wisdom energy from the Syrians, and it's very. They're so peaceful. They're so harmonious. They're so loving. They're also master healers. How about you? What do you think about
So
the Syrians?
So do you think that in that particular context that we're talking about more of like the what is it, the great like sea whales, like not so much like the killer whale? Because the killer whale is a little bit more of
Mm-hmm.
the predator side.
Yes, and you know the killer whale, I believe, is actually a type of dolphin.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
Yeah, so I did. It does to me have a very different energy. I almost feel like yeah, like blue, like
a
a
great
blue
white,
whale type of
great white
energy.
whale, is that what it is? A great white or is it great blue? The
The
ones
blue
that
whale, and there's
I think we're
the.
thinking of the same ones. I just can't remember what they're like.
I
Uh,
think the blue whale is the biggest kind, and then there's the humpback
yeah.
whale, which has all the little like
Mhm.
yeah, those kinds that if you were going to go on like a whale watching thing, that's not like specifically
Yeah.
to see like the orcas, like you would see probably one of these kinds of whales, like.
Yeah,
And
whenever
yeah, maybe different whale species have different galactic origins.
ooh,
Who
maybe,
knows?
maybe. Um, when I was listening to this article again this evening before we started recording, Jeremy was like, they said whales, and he looks at me, he's like the real animal whales or like whale? And I was
Oh,
like,
like the country.
I'm thinking about the animals this time. So he's like, "Oh, weird that there is actually whales associated with some starseed." And I was like, "Yeah."
Mhm.
Like, I feel like it makes sense though, because there's a lot of like water related like
Mhm.
things to different starseeds. So, um, I don't know. I definitely got like that same like really intense wisdom and intellect.
Mhm.
When I was discussing my theory of aliens being sea creatures, maybe they're the sea creatures that I speak of,
Maybe
without
some of them are.
really knowing that I was talking about that. I don't know.
Mhm. We were just talking about that last
Yeah.
episode. Mhm.
I think that I don't know. I thought that it was another thing where I think I mentioned it last time that it was a lot of video games, or did I say that earlier? Like, I feel like they always, a lot of these like
Mm,
names are like video game or like technological names, like Sirius is like Sirius Radio.
mhm,
Like, it's just interesting to me, like so many like obvious things that are in our
mhm,
day-to-day lives that we just overlook. But like
mhm.
that wasn't,
Yes, like
it
the
couldn't
radio.
be a coincidence. Come on. Like,
Yes. And like sure you can make the case too of like, well, it's a star, so we know the name of the star, but it's like I feel like there's something deeper in you which is like pointing you to have a
yeah,
resonance.
how many stars are out there? You pick that one to name? Like,
Right.
come on.
Right.
Like,
Facts. And of course there's no coincidence. Like I don't believe that coincidence is like really exists, but some people would say otherwise, but to me it only makes sense like there's no coincidence. Like even whales and whales, like that is not a coincidence to me. Like there's some type of connection there. I don't know exactly what it is, but to me it
yeah,
just makes sense. Like it's
maybe. Yeah. Right.
but no, what's interesting too to connect this back to our conversation is we are talking about like cats versus dogs. We got into some other animals too, but Sirius is a dog constellation, and
Oh, interesting.
you know, so in yes, in so yeah, Sirius is the dog, and that's very interesting. I do feel like that can come through in Sirian Starseed energy, where like this group vibe and this loyalty, and like I was saying, this love and this harmony, and like willing to do things for the pack, like wanting everybody to be included. Like I feel like a Sirius Starseed is like they can be so like social and fun, but like very inclusive of everybody, very joyful. Like it makes sense. It just kind of makes sense that all those things are kind of tied together, you know?
Yeah, the one thing I didn't pay attention to when I was looking into that is were they another like geometry driven trait?
I know they have these
Or
symbols.
more of
Like I've seen these
intuitive?
symbols that were Syrian symbols,
Yeah.
and they definitely utilize. I feel like all three groups are just master energy healers in different forms, and I don't know, like, okay, so when I was getting my attunement for light language, when we got
Mhm,
to the Syrians, they brought up whole, um, this singing bowl. This singing
mm,
bowl, and as it's sang, it resonates in your throat chakra, and it
mhm.
reminds you of like as the sound resonates, it expands your consciousness. So that is Syrian energy for you. Like to me, that says so much. Just just that.
Mm. I forgot the one thing that I was going to say is I feel like they're more on the, at least in my like, I don't know, vibe of like picking up when reading about
Mhm.
them was they're more on like the creative kind of side. Like not necessarily that they're not any sort of
Mhm.
like intellect as part of mathematical and have their
Mhm.
symbols and things, but like they're more of the creative side, like the
Mhm.
feminine energy, and they're still hard workers, but they're reserved.
Mhm.
And I thought that was interesting, and also seems to be a common trait with a lot of star seeds. I feel like they always seem to depict them as like they they stick to themselves. They
Mm.
don't, like they're more of like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a loner, like an introvert.
Introvert. Yeah, yeah.
You need your
And
alone time. Mhm.
yeah, but I feel like that can't be true for every star seed, right? Like there's got to be some sort of
Mhm.
outgoing, like 1% of these star seeds, or like, you know
I
what I mean? Like
feel like
I just feel like it's always a common thing that they always mention
yes.
that they're like that, but I feel like,
I feel
and
like
I'm like that in a lot of ways, so I do relate to that, but I do feel
Mhm.
like there's sometimes where I'm absolutely not that, and somebody meeting me in that moment would never think that I was, maybe a balance of both.
Definitely. I feel like many times like star seeds are highly empathic. Like we have this ability to feel. So I think that sometimes that in itself, like just being highly sensitive to energies, like because you come from such a high frequency, you're naturally going to be sensitive to energies, and this goes for every kind of star seed. Like that, if you don't, and then this kind of goes back to our conversation about boundaries, but just energetic boundaries of like if you are wishy-washy, like highly sensitive energy, where you go and you're not surrounded by the right people who are filling up your cup and like people who are depleting you, then it's going to look like introversion for many people. Even though I think many of these starseeds are incredibly outgoing, can be incredibly social, but you need to be in the right environment that's like filling up
Yeah. Yeah,
that
I get
cup.
that.
And I think sometimes these articles I also feel like interpret like your starseed life is different, like before you kind of become aware of these things and then can work with those energies more than after you kind of have these things more integrated. So like maybe starseeds before they kind of get a handle on those things can be very like introverted, but once you become more comfortable with yourself, maybe you'll be more extroverted. And like I've always considered myself an ambivert, but yeah, I think it goes back to just the article kind of will generalize certain things.
That's the
And
one that's both, right?
hmm?
Yeah. Introvert's the one that's like both, right? Like you're
Yeah,
a
that's
both.
me, yo. That's totally
Yeah,
me.
I totally like that. Like I
Hmm.
love to go. I love to go, 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 go all the
Yeah.
time. Love it. But if I don't keep a balance of like going and coming home, grounded, like doing my nightly thing and then getting up and doing whatever, I am off. If I go,
Mhm.
go, go, go too much, I will crash. I will get very moody, like, because I'm not,
Mhm.
feeding that other side of like, no, I don't want
Mhm.
to talk to anyone right now. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I definitely am that. Um,
Mhm.
but I also was going to ask you during this conversation about Syrian is one of the other things that the article said, which, I even though learning a little bit about them, don't necessarily know it as well as you do. They said that there is a lot of similarities between Syrian and Andromedan.
Know what? I more recently found this out is that Sirius is actually within the Andromeda galaxy, and so is Lyra. So
Oh, okay.
so that's kind of makes Sirius is kind of almost like this connected group then, even in that sense where it's like the Syrians have a lot in common with the Arcturians and the Pleiadians, like you mentioned last
Yeah.
episode. You were reading about that, and now we know that the
I
Andromedans and the Lyrans and the Syrians are all in the same galaxy, so there's similarities there.
Yeah, I feel like the
Interesting.
more we learn about them and things and just talking about them together, I feel like the more it just is kind of it makes me giggle to think of how far away they all are from each other, but it's just kind of like how we are on Earth. Like there's so many
Yeah.
different, races and heritages of all of the human race or
Mhm.
mankind, but we all collectively exchange in each other's lives and things, and sometimes
Mhm.
make hybrids, like, we are all, I feel like most of us in
Mhm.
America are some hybrid of another.
Absolutely.
There's probably very
Absolutely.
limited pure blood anything in
Mhm.
our country. And so
Mhm.
I feel like learning about how they all have their little connections, it's just almost like they're all, in this same galaxy together and have all been communicating and hanging out for
Yeah.
trillions and trillions of
For
years.
millennials and shit. Millennial, millennial.
Like
It's so cool. Yeah, like it's
learning about how they're connected is just like, oh, well, duh. Like, of course they're
right.
connected. Like,
Right,
why
because it's
wouldn't
also like Like how on Earth, like we have so much technology now that like I can talk to somebody on the other side of the world. Like I can talk to somebody in Japan right now. Like that, like you can beat that. Like this is like the weird galactic perspective. It's like you can be thousands and thousands of light years away from something which is so far physically, but they have the technology where you can shoop, I'm there, because portals and teleportation and these beings have these abilities. It's as if it's just a higher level of consciousness. So in one way the world gets bigger, but in other ways the world gets smaller because you're telepathic with your people. You're
Right.
like you're all working
Oh,
together.
yeah.
It's a very different, you know.
You know, I actually feel like the closest thing that I could ever absolutely agree with that is in a personal experience of, you know, I have moved around a lot as a kid, like
Mm.
from the time I was born to graduating high school, I moved a ton. I've mentioned that before, I think. But even with that being said, I'd always kind of lived in small-ish towns, like, you know, 10, 11,000 people, you know, maybe a little more, but not a lot. And then I moved to Lafayette, which was a little bit bigger than that. And it had
Mm.
you know, a Purdue campus there. And so that's a huge school with thousands
Lots
of,
of kids.
and
Mhm.
the longer I was there, by the time I left, I was probably considered a townie, is what they call you when you like live
Mhm.
in of a college town. Like, oh, you're a
Mhm.
townie, you're not a student. Like, I had become a townie, and it was such a big city to me when I moved there. But after 5, 6 years, I like would run into people everywhere I went, and I was just like, this
Mhm.
is wild. Like, and so that is totally true. Like, and if you have never experienced that and like moved to a bigger city, if you live in a smaller city, or if you have always lived in a bigger city and never moved to a smaller city, that is about the closest thing you can do in this human life to experience that perspective. Is like when you
Mm.
bigger to smaller, you really realize how small everything really is. Like,
Mhm.
I've been in Florida on vacation with my ex-boyfriend for like a month-long trip, and they ran into 6 different people that we went to school with, and it was a school from a K through 12. Like, it was a very small area. How does that happen? Been with Jeremy's
Mhm.
family in Florida, and they've run into their friends in Florida. How does that happen? My like, it's just like,
Mhm.
so you have like that small like realization of like, wow, everything is really small here on this planet. But
Mhm.
to make that even bigger and think of it from a galactic perspective, like that is fucking wild. Like that just like makes
Wild.
me giddy. Like a part of me wants us to be able to know that technology so that we could do that kind of traveling, but then also I don't know if we have the sort of mental
Like the
moderation.
integrity.
Like, yeah, integrity is a good word to use.
Like we're not
I
on the right, quite ready. We're not quite ready
Yeah, well,
for
I
all
think
that.
some would be fine, like, because we are peaceful human beings, but I feel like
Mhm.
the people that are discovering that usually are, you know, being paid by people that might not always have the best intentions. So that is a hard
Mhm.
thing to kind of mitigate. Like, if you are the person that has the mental capacity to figure out how to do these scientific breakthroughs, and you're not working for the right people, do you want those things to come to fruition? Like, I wouldn't
This
want to
is
be
kind of the
that
question.
guy.
I
I
feel like
really
that's a huge reason why
why we don't
like
have it yet.
star seeds are on Earth though too. Is like let's make sure that like we're doing like let's make sure we do the shit properly to the best that we can because it could go so wrong. On a side note, I know how to teleport. I just can't do it yet. I've thought of at least 2 ways to teleport, and this is the secret sauce that I will save for something else. But I just want to put that out there. That like if there's a special power that you feel connected to that you want to like that I don't know like try to think of how that could be possible and like you're starting the manifestation process of that to is like be a reality like I don't know. And like maybe I'm crazy, but like I really do feel like I don't know if this will be possible before I die, but I don't think that it's out of the question to be possible before I die, because if things are accelerating more and more and more, and technological growth is exponential, which means we're just here on the bottom of the curve, and like it's gonna go like that.
Yeah.
So like just 100 years ago, like I maybe said this before, my apologies that I say this a lot, and I'll probably say it again, but like my grandfather would look out his window and there would be horses running down the street as the fire with the fire trucks. Like the fire trucks were pulled by horses, and that's
Yeah.
2 generations away from me. So like,
Yeah.
where are we going? How fast is things changing? Like he didn't fully comprehend like a computer. He's like that box that's like a game that grandma plays on. Like computers were just like, so think of the technology that when we're grandpas and grandmas and just grandparents, what are we going to be seeing in the world? It's going to be wild.
Yeah, totally. And I do think that some of the generation coming up behind us is a little more leery about things than
Mhm.
we are, which
Mm.
may be annoying to like a little bit of the older people because they're just like, ah, deal with it. But at the end of the day, some of that anxiety is going to stop us from doing something crazy. You know,
Yeah.
those kids are going to be voters. Those kids are going to be a part of the influence, and you know,
And the
some of their
engineers and
apprehension and
mhm.
trusting just the government and the things that dictate things is just not going to happen the way it has happened for the last several decades. So
Mhm.
I think it's a good thing. It's hard to see it that way, you know, watching it, but it's just like I was talking about earlier. That's just life in a nutshell. Sometimes it's hard to,
Yeah. I mean, yin and yang. There's the good and the bad. There's the
yeah,
possible good
absolutely.
things and the possible
Uh,
bad things. And but no, what's interesting too though is I feel like the younger generation, like I agree, they're more. Did you say leery or weary? More.
like,
I feel
yeah,
like either of those words
yeah,
fit.
yeah.
Like,
They're just not,
but they're also very talented with technology. Like they understand
yeah.
technology way like very quickly, like very easily. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
again, it's almost like, and I feel like this with spiritual gifts too. Sometimes I feel like your spirit team will almost like wait until you're ready to like have to be able to be using a spiritual gift like in the highest way before you have full access to it. So like I feel like there's just almost these like spiritual protections that's like put on like it could, I don't know, in some ways I do feel like we're kind of like young monks out here like going through a spiritual awakening and having these different layers. Like it uncovers in layers. Like it's not like you go to sleep one day and you wake up and you know all the things, you know everything about everything, and you have all your gifts online. Like it's a process, it's gradual. You learn as you grow, and as you grow you're being entrusted with more information. You get, you know, you just get naturally get more access to different things. So I don't know, I feel like that helps me at least feel kind of more safe with these things
Yeah.
existing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like we all still have our vote and our power too. So it's not like
Mhm.
they're the ones that have all the power, you know what I mean? Um, but I feel like that's how a lot of the time when you're hearing an older generation talk about the younger generation, they just act like they have no power now. It's like you have
Mhm.
the same amount of power you had before they had any power.
Mhm.
So it's fine. Just incorporate it in. um, but I feel like their apprehension is really just gonna make for a better game plan. I feel like sometimes people are too quick to press go instead of think about,
Mhm.
like, "Okay, if I press go, what's gonna happen after that?" Like, I
Right.
feel like that is, like, a good thing to a certain degree, you know, obviously, we
Mhm.
can't always be taking a step back to, like, gain perspective every single time, but I think that that's
Mhm.
something we haven't done in a really long time, and if we do it, we do it about things that we should have just pulled the trigger on, so it's just, like, very so, yeah,
Yeah, like the
but
executive decision making
I
is
feel
not
like there's a lot
clear.
more acceptance, though, like, even though it's like, "Oh, I don't buy that," but
Mm-hmm.
you. I feel like I get that vibe a lot from the younger generation as well. Like, it's like they don't
Mm.
have to agree to just be like, "You go ahead and do you." Like, there's
Yeah, like no judgment.
acceptance without it being their acceptance. Like, they're not accepting it
Yes,
as their own belief, and I think that that's a big
that's
thing.
powerful.
So,
That's a powerful thing to
that's
do.
going to allow for a lot more, like, starseed awakenings to occur because there's less of this, like, "Oh, what's this weird thing that you're admitting to?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be less of that and a little bit more of like, "Oh, cool." Like, and if they don't agree, they're just gonna be
Yeah.
like, "Whatever." Like,
Yeah, more open-mindedness, acceptance of differing opinions, like, mm-hmm,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's interesting because, like, in certain ways, you can see how that is being like gone. Like, there's extremes in both directions of that,
Mhm.
but like, it's true. Like, don't like. Sometimes I forget the perspective of like, oh no, like, there's people in like throughout the world where this is working out in the best possible way. Like,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes what we're fed is like all the ways that it's working out in a negative way, but it really is working out in positive ways too. So don't
Yeah,
forget that. Like, oh, that's just a
absolutely.
beautiful reminder. And I
Yeah.
do feel like that was maybe some Syrian energy kind of coming in and being like, hey, listen, everybody. And like now I'm even pulled back to our cards from the beginning because it's like, yo, like shit can get crazy here on earth, but like everything's gonna be okay. And like
Yeah.
being those guides to like hold you and bring you through. And like that's what a shaman does because that was like I have the shaman card and like
Yeah. Wow, I didn't even think
yeah.
about the shaman card. Yeah. That's exactly what what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and so maybe that's part of like the
I love that our
Syrian
episode
mission on Earth.
actually circled back there. That's beautiful. The whole
I
thing
love when that happens.
beautiful
Yeah,
little
it's like, oh, now we see even more where those cards were pulled, and it really is a beautiful message. Like, I feel so much love from the Syrians. Like, it's very powerful as well, and it is a very unique. I get this again, like I get this ancient, but just powerful, but so peaceful. It's like that type of powerful where you're naturally joyful and almost like how the Buddha is like laughing, but he also so calm at the same time. And like, ooh, and like one time there was this like Sirian Starseed who was talking and she said like she had this meditation with the whale. Back to the whale, and it's like how the whale is going so fast, but when you are the whale, it's just so slow. It's like you're so massive, you're so vast, your energy is so powerful that it can move mountains literally, but you're just going like this and you're just it's like this slow but fast and it's that like
Hmm.
so
Interesting.
loving but so powerful like oof,
Yeah.
serious. Cool.
Um, the other thing that I think that is was interesting is I think the last episode wasn't I talking about labels?
Mm.
About
Oh,
labels.
one of these recent episodes, yeah,
Yeah,
we went.
like they're not big on labels. Don't label them. They don't
Mhm.
label.
Mhm.
They're very like want to
Mhm.
where they want to be and don't put them in a box again. Like it's
Mhm.
I thought that was kind of funny because I
Yes.
when I read that I was like, oh, of course you're like that. Uh, I really feel like the biggest thing that I get from them is like that their power is in their creativity. Something about
Mm.
like resonated with when I was like talking about the whole business and like my plan and stuff before we really start kicked off. I think I'll include it in the episode so you'll probably hear it. But
Yes,
just
definitely.
I feel like that's very Syrian energy that I was channeling there without really even knowing it.
I was thinking that too, and I'm like, this is going actually perfectly energetically aligning with everything. Like,
Because
yes.
like very much where their power is their creative
Mhm.
nature. Like they really emphasize that in every article
Mhm.
about them was their
The
creativity.
creativity and the don't put me in a box because I'm gonna create, and that's also what you're doing out here.
Isn't that like every artist? Like, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Every artist is like wants to think big and don't put me in a box, and like that's
Guilty.
yeah. I feel like I definitely have many times in my life. Like, so I feel like a creative person is maybe you would be aligned a little bit with that starseed, but only because of your creative nature. Who knows? Maybe that is
Mm-hmm.
your family, but I just feel like that's a very big part of them is their creativeness and that
Mm-hmm.
artistic of kind of the rebel. They want you to know their name, but they don't want you to put a label next to their name.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that Sirian tagline.
Yeah. Like, but they
I love
do
it.
it. Like, I feel like they're the artists. Like, I get Banksy vibes. Like, he has some sort of serious message behind his paintings, but
But
like
it's just.
he don't put him in a box. Like, none of his pieces are ever going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I love that. Yeah,
He's-
that's a cool.
I feel like he's a good embodiment of
A
them.
cool Syrian rap. That's a cool Syrian rap. Like, yes, like the creativity, and I almost feel like the creativity because all three groups that we mentioned last episode are all like master healers. So then to kind of like piggyback off what you're saying, it's like to me they're almost like very creative in how they
Yeah.
heal. Like they like healing through painting. I'm getting like again like shamanism, like like they will guide you through into this land, into this like different realm where you can change your subconscious, and it's so creative and vast, and it opens your consciousness like that. Like for me, like one thing I always see in these articles is like about the consciousness, and when I think back to like the singing bowl that increases your consciousness, it's like just like these waves pouring out of like healing, and yeah, like those kind of like healing not radiation because like radiation is bad, but like
Like,
radiating these healing waves. Like that's what I get from seers. Whereas like Arcturians are also master healers, but to me they're very precise. Like they're very like they know scientifically all the little do, and they can go do and like use their technology and use the crystals and use these things and get you like super healed, but then and align. And then the Syrians are coming in and like holding your emotional space and like bringing your consciousness awake and like guiding you through these like shamanic realm. It's like they're all healers, but it's a different energy of healing.
yeah,
It's different kind of. It's a different thing that they bring to the table.
this is gonna kind of, at least I hope it kind of blows your mind a little bit. So I made the reference of Palladians being like angels. Like I would
Mm-hmm.
be curious if that was the one, if people ever did see an angel, if really they saw a Palladian or like whatever. Like that's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Arcturian and the Syrian, you're talking about the masculine and the feminine. Like masculine, they're very like logical and like mathematical and like down to the T of exactly how everything should go. Whereas Syrian being more of a feminine creative, like they're more of like free flow and like deal with the emotional frequency side of it. Like, so I just think that that's why they're kind of looped together, because it's like angel is always something we look up to, and then you have the man and the female. Like, so it's just like
Mm-hmm.
it kind of ties everyone in and fits
Interesting.
it. Like, at least that's how I feel like when I was reading about both of them, I definitely picked up like more of a
Mm-hmm.
masculine energy in the Arcturians, where I was definitely picking up more of a feminine, like free flow, creative like vibe from the Syrians. And I already had my Palladian connection with angels.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's just me as a human making connections with things that I already knew prior to learning about starseeds. So there is some of that, but I do feel like there's always a balance in having masculine and feminine. We all have those two things within us as human beings, regardless of whether you're non-binary, feminine or masculine or whatever, cis, not
Right. We all have these. We all have both energies.
both. And
Mhm.
I think that it's only natural for those two things to kind of find each other. So if for some reason they are really similar and Arcturian and Sirian are somewhat seen along that seems like a natural balance to me. Like
Mm.
um Palladians seem to be more of like a unisex to me in my mind. Like there is
That's so interesting.
they are the perfect blend of both is how my brain like processes learning about these energies.
That's so interesting. I almost see it like, okay, I agree with you. Like, I get more kind of like masculine, but know what I almost kind of get too, and is like to me, Palladian it feels very feminine because it feels very like warm, and I always envision like pinks with the Palladians. So again, that's and like I
And
love like because we all connect to these energies different and we all kind of like conceptualize them different, and I think it's really cool to like be like, ooh, I kind of like feel this way, and you're like, ooh, I kind of pick up on this, like like yeah, I guess I always feel very like feminine energy from the Pleiadian, but I also can see what you mean because I also like angels have been described as being like very kind of androgynous kind of beings, like and I've read that about the Pleiadians as well, but for some reason I feel like the Syrians as well, like I feel like I don't know, in my head I'm like I felt like Pleiadians are slightly kind of more feminine, like, and the Arcturians are very structured, they can be scientific, like they're very like masterful with the mind, and then I almost kind of felt like Syrians in the middle being like having these, but I see it in all the ways, honestly. Like it makes sense to me in all the ways, and I think it's just which way are you looking from, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, totally. I feel like, the other reason why I say that is because, angels are so protective. So that's more of like a
Mm-hmm.
type feature, and the feminine is more of the nurturing, loving,
Yes.
and that side. So that's the reason why I kind of put them in more of like an androgynous unisex.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I totally get like that extreme like warmth and nurturing and like
Mm-hmm.
reading about Palladians, and like they just seem very like loving in the way they want to deliver like information. They want you to learn from
Mm-hmm.
it. They don't want you to be scolded by it. They want to,
Yes.
educate you. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
naturally a mother is kind of like that. They teach you to walk, they teach you to eat, they do all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I totally get both feminine from
Yes.
all of them. I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
seems so strong and like
Mm-hmm.
mathematic forward, and like that is just seems such a masculine thing for me for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason.
Yeah, for me too.
The other two definitely give me feminine vibes, but because of the protector vibe in Palladians, that's why I say that.
Mm-hmm.
I totally think that aliens compared to humans, though, I just feel like always fall more of a feminine than a masculine. At least so far, of all the ones that we've talked about,
Mm.
all seem so loving and like nurturing and more of like the protector guardian side, like that side of masculinity, not so much the over. I don't even want to like always depict masculine as negative because it's not negative, but like
Mm-hmm.
forward thinking and like aggressive about forward thinking and very just yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like the other thing too that I think of is like all the groups that we're talking about, at least it's like they're all so again like they're very evolved, they're coming to help humanity expand their consciousness, so like in order to get to the dimensions that they are at, they have had to integrate so much of their masculine and feminine energies. So like I mean the truth is all like just the same way all of us have, like all of these groups have masculine and feminine energy, so it really
Right.
is broad generalizations that we're making anyway, like this
Yeah, yeah,
more, but like but I think that once you get past a certain like dimension, it's like it's integrated positively, so you're no longer expressing these like the dark feminine traits, and you're no longer like expressing these like dark masculine traits where it's like, you know, you're not getting this like aggressive side of masculinity so much. You're not getting this like, because it's balanced with the nurturance of the feminine, and vice versa. And like with the Arcturians, it's like, yes, they have this structure, and structure is a masculine concept, like structure and logic and math and science, those are more masculine fields from our perception, but like they have integrated with their own feminine energy, which is balancing that for them to like bring the spiritual energy through that structure and to have it be guided divinely rather than being like a masculine ego force that's in opposition to that. And I think that rings true with like all of these groups. You know what I mean?
Let's face it, they are superior beings. Balance. People are either too in our masculine energy or too in our feminine energy, and we ain't as balanced as they are.
They don't have fuckboys and serious.
That's the name of this episode. They don't have boys and serious. Amen to that. If we could evolve like so we never have to hear about another girl or another guy being screwed over by each other, because that would be great. Like that would be just go into things like you give a shit. Do that, and it will do good for everyone.
Oh my god.
We all are hurt at some point in our lives, and we talked about it last episode. I've hurt people. It sucks, but I'm just saying, I wasn't going into it like it was everything, and that is it. You just go into it like everything is important, and then you don't do those things, and that's my ticket. So
just be honest about how you feel. Just say exactly how you feel and say exactly what you want. Like if you can just do that part, like
woo, snaps. Snaps.
We've all been through our shit. We've all had our experiences, but you know. Oh my gosh, you know what's so funny is like one of my mentors just like shared the song that they're putting out that's called I'm Not a Starseed Fuckboy.
Oh my god.
I just realized that I said that.
Oh, I love that. Shout out.
Shout out Nicole Peretti.
Yes. I love that.
Oh my goodness.
That's where they're superior than us, is that they know when to not push the button and blow up the world. Well, and maybe some of them learned from that. And you know, are balanced in their energies, which is significantly huge compared to what we have here on Earth. I think that's probably the biggest problem, maybe. That stems from most of our issues, is not being balanced in our masculine and feminine.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of an issue that is not kind of stemmed from that, and I really can't think of one off the top of my head.
I guess I figured out what we all should be doing. Like we should all be doing that sort of coaching people to find balance in their masculine and feminine. That's literally the ticket. If you're doing that right now, I commend you, sir, ma'am, they, them. That's fantastic. Keep doing this.
And book a light language sesh with Frenchie coming up. Yeah. Where we could do light language to balance our energies.
In the comment, I would love to know about you. Like, let's spread your career, because that's
yes. We need more of this in the world. That's what the world freaking needs, y'all. We're gonna have more and more people doing that, more and more people doing that work on themselves, because really any help you're getting, anybody doing that work, is really just guiding your own intention of doing that. So yeah, good reminder too of get your daily balance, y'all.
Yeah. Yes, do it. Well, I feel like we've talked for a good hour and
some time.
Over a half or so. So we will pick this up
We'll
again
leave it
for
here.
you. Next week for you, but later in the week for us.
Yeah, but make sure you're following us. Make sure you're catching up with us. You can find us at Cosmic Connect, Frenchie Blue on the IG, Cosmic Connect the podcast on TikTok, Cosmic Connect Frenchie Blue at gmail.com. Email us in, write in, tell us what you think about all the things. And I am at frenchiexviiBIG. You can find me on all the things.
And I'm at blue.river. And I think I might make like a Jotform or something where people could like fill out like little questions if they have them or something.
Yes.
You're seeing this episode, if we got some, check out our link in our bio, see if I got one. And if not, yell at me in the comments.
But if we did, ask us a question. Do a Q&A. We would love to.
We did do that just so we have a specific way for people to like reach out without having to go through the whole email process, or if you DM, we can make it anonymous. Like, we'd love to hear about your alien stories, anything, everything. If you have a spiritual awakening or if you have a starseed awakening, I would love to hear about it. While you're watching this as this unfolds almost.
We want to know. We want to know whatever you want us to know. Write in.
Yes.
And that being said,
I love you. I love you
I
all.
love you. And I love you. And I hope you have the best week. Peace.